So I've had the Air 2 now for the past few weeks, and there's definitely a bunch of new features on here that I really like. And also they made some small enhancements all around the drone, really small things that most people kind of gloss over or don't really talk about too much. So in this video, I just want to talk to you about some of those main features that I really like and I've been using a lot, as well as some of those smaller enhancements. And if you guys are new to my channel, my name is Anastasio. I do a lot of drone tech, tips, tutorials, and product reviews right here on this channel. So if that's something that interests you, please consider subscribing and also hitting that bell to be notified when I post new videos. Now, if you're just starting your research on the Air 2 and you don't know the full specs of it, I made a full review video. It's going to be above as well as down below in the video description. Make sure you guys check out that video. I go into a lot more detail about all of the new features of the DJI Mavic Air 2. Now, after flying it for the past few weeks now, there's definitely some features on here that I've been using a little bit more than others. Depending on what you're shooting and what you want to do with it, you might find some of the other features more beneficial. But I just want to talk to you about some of the things that I really enjoyed about the Mavic Air 2. Now, I'm not going to go into full details about some of the main ones that they upgraded, like the 48 megapixel camera as well as AccuSync. I've definitely talked about that in some of my previous videos, so make sure you guys check out my playlist above to see all the videos I've talked about in the past about the Air 2. But first, let's talk about some of the smaller enhancements that they did on the Air 2 that they've either learned or got from the Mini or the Mavic 2 series that they now put onto the Mavic Air 2. Now, when I first got the Mavic Air 2 and I put the battery in, the first thing I noticed, of course, was this little metal hook right here. Now, at first I thought it was just an enhancement over the Mavic 2 series, where the Mavic 2 has a plastic hook right here to lock the battery in place. Here it's a metal one now on the Air 2, and I really thought it was just an enhancement of making it metal over the plastic one. But then if you actually look in the app, what it is, it's actually a trigger on the side here that has a connection. So if you don't have your battery fully pressed down and clicked in, and those metal connections are now touching the side as well as touching the battery, you're gonna get a warning in the app that said there's a battery connection or battery issue. So you're gonna wanna go back and check the battery to make sure it's actually sitting in there properly and it is locked. But if you own a Mavic 2 series drone like the Mavic 2 Pro or the Mavic 2 Zoom, you'll know that sometimes these batteries tend to swell up based on how long you've had them, how much heat they're taking on. So if you leave this in your car and it's gonna be exposed to a lot of heat, the battery will tend to swell up. Now, this is actually a fairly newer battery, so this one's not swollen, but I do have one of my older swollen ones here. And if you try to put the swollen one into the battery, because of the fact it's swollen here at the bottom, it does not go down all the way in your drone. You can actually start seeing a little gap right here, and it'll kind of click in and then it pops back out pretty easily. Now, if I use a non-swollen battery, this one's actually fairly new. If I press this down, you can actually hear it and it clicks down all the way. So nice safety feature that they've added on the Mavic Air 2. Now, another feature that they took from the Mavic 2 series is this auxiliary light here at the very bottom. Now, if you have something like the Mavic Mini, this does not have the light at the bottom, it just has these sensors. But the Mavic 2 series, the Mavic 2 Zoom, Enterprise, and the Pro all have this light here at the very bottom of the drone. So when I was looking at the sensors on the bottom of the Mavic Air 2, I also saw that they implemented a light very similar. This Mavic 2 has 2 lights on the bottom. Here on the Mavic Air, it just has 1. But that light's a really good feature to have, especially if you're gonna be flying in low light. So if you're doing something in sunrise, sunset, and you're gonna be taking off in an area that might not be lit well enough, this light, if you set the auxiliary light in the app to auto, it'll automatically turn on if it senses that there's low light in that area. Now, even the light really helps on takeoff and landing. What I like to do is if I'm flying somewhere in either sunrise or sunset when there's kind of dark outside still, and if I have a hard time seeing it in the sky, what I normally do will turn this on. That way I'm able to see the light coming from the bottom, even if it's just a little speck of light. That gives me a better line of sight to my drone. Then of course I'll look at my maps and then fly it back. But definitely gives you some sort of indicator while you're in the air of locating your drone. The next update they made is around the remote control of the Air 2. Now, once again, those that are familiar with flying the Mavic 2 series, if you got the Mavic 2 remote control right here, on the side of the remote control, it does have this switch, which goes from tripod to position to sport mode, which is really nice to have on the remote control itself. But if you're coming from something like the Mini, you don't have those switches on the remote control. In order for you to change those modes on the Mavic Mini, you're gonna have to do it through the app, going on that top left, switching it from cinematic to normal to sport mode. But if you have this smart controller, they took this from the smart controller. So the smart controller has that hard switch right here in the middle, which goes from tripod to position to sport mode. And now they took that from the smart controller and placed it here on the Mavic Air 2 remote. Now the reason why that switch is a big deal is that I tend to use it a lot. What I like to do is hover my drone and get a good GPS lock first. Then I'll throw it in sport mode to get my drone out to an area. Once I'm out there, I will switch it back to normal mode, position it where I need it to be positioned to, and then I'll switch it over to tripod mode because I know I'm gonna want something really, really slow and cinematic. That way I'm able to switch it quickly here on the remote, have full control of the drone and not have to worry about going through the app. Now this next update that they did, I really like because the battery is so big on the remote control, and I actually use an old iPhone 10 and my battery on my phone does not last that long. So what's nice is that if you go through the app and you go over to control, there's a little toggle there that says phone charging. So if you're out there flying and your phone might be low on battery, all you have to do is hit that switch right there and now your phone will charge through the battery that's in the remote control. Now this next feature, of course, I like because it is one of the newer specs of the camera that everyone is excited about. That's the 4K at 60, but not just the 4K at 60, which works really, really well. I'm actually really excited about the slow-mo, which is at 1080p at 120, as well as 240. I'm more of a photography first type of flyer, but it was really cool to see and use that option just because of the fact that if you want to get anything that's kind of a little bit more dynamic, has a little bit more motion and movement in it, having the ability to shoot at 120 or 240, speed ramp it up and then slow it down and then speed ramp it back out. It's a really nice feature to think about using a lot more now that it's on the Mavic Air 2. Now ADS-B is something that they are including on the Mavic Air 2s that are sold here in the US. Outside the US, I don't believe that they're gonna have ADS-B or the use of AirSense on those Mavic Air 2s. And for those that aren't familiar with ADS-B, it's basically a DJI AirSense alert system that lets you know if there's any aircrafts in your area. Now here in San Diego, there's definitely a lot of low flying aircraft, especially if you're near the beach. There's definitely a lot of smaller tourist ones that go all the way up and down the shoreline. Now, even though it's not a geofence area, it's always concerning because some of those helicopters can definitely fly really, really low. But it's also really nice to know that if that manned aircraft does have ADS-B and it does work with your system, it'll give you a little warning here to let you know that there is an aircraft in your area. Now the next feature that I really like and I pretty much use almost every time I go out is their FocusTrack, which is a combination of their active track, their point of interest, as well as spotlight. They have that all built into the app right from the main screen. I think it's really good that they implemented it right there on the main screen so you don't have to actually go into the app and dig around a little bit more to activate it. It's right there on the screen all the time. All you have to do to trigger it is, of course, just drag your box over that subject. It was really cool because one time I was flying over some small boats that were moving on the water. All I did was fly about 50 feet above them, circle them through the app, and then did point of interest. So basically what it was doing is as the boat was moving down the water, I did point of interest and select the direction I wanted it to fly in. And then the Mavic Air would just continue making circles. Even as the boat was moving down the water, it would continue just circling around that subject. Really nice to have that so accessible right there on the screen without having to dig through the menus. And there it is, guys. Those are just some of the enhancements on the Mavic Air 2 as well as some of the features I really liked using after flying this thing for the past few weeks. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's a ton of features on the Mavic Air. I'm just highlighting a few things that I really like. As always, if you guys got some value from this video, a big like would be much appreciated. And also check out my playlist. I have a ton of Mavic Air videos on my channel. I'll leave that playlist above as well as down below if you want more information, want more details about all of the other features that this thing has to offer. Make sure you guys check out those videos. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to be notified. This is Ultra Anastasio with FlytPath.com. See you guys in the next one. Take care.